What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the D-Day Buddy Build. This is episode number 7, and today we are going to be focusing on the wings and the wing attachment point on the fuselage, plus some odds and ends like the cowling and then the actual cannon bay covers. We have to kind of get all of that squared away. So let's jump right on in, get to those cannon bays. Now the Accurate Miniatures kit is very cool in the fact that it can actually allow you to open up the inner cannon bays to expose the gun breech and any wiring and all of that. So that's really, really nice. The problem is though, I don't intend on doing that. And the reason being is that, again, I'm kind of envisioning a narrative here for my diorama as if Priller has just come in and landed. I'm going with the idea that he's just basically landed and he's jumped out and he's talking to his crew chief. So there's not really a lot of time in between him exiting the aircraft and them jumping on it and starting to reload. So I don't want anything open. That also includes the cowling. I want that engine closed up too. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult. Usually with aircraft that have panels and open hatches and whatnot, if you decide to close them up, you have to be very careful in how you do that because inevitably, nothing fits just quite perfectly. There's always a gap and there's always an issue with fit here and there. So this is the one area so far that I'm really concerned about. So we're going to take it nice and slow. We're going to open up these little panel areas that they tell you to open if you're going to be closing them. And then we're going to have both wings ready to go and we'll test fit and see how the panel doors actually fit. So we've got the wing all set up. Everything is glued in and ready to go. Let's go ahead and try the left wing. Let's go ahead and just test fit that. Looks like we need a little bit of work there to go ahead and get it to fit flush, but let's test that door. Okay, so you can kind of see where it's supposed to fit. And the fit here on the very top of the fuselage is extremely tight. Like it really fits in there nicely. I'm kind of thinking of maybe installing this onto the wing first and then putting the fuselage on. So just to go ahead and make it a little easier on myself to avoid any sort of panel lines that need to be rescribed on the wings. That's okay. I think what we're going to do is we're going to glue down the panel here onto the fuselage. I think it might be a little easier to remove that panel line instead of on the wing. So I went ahead and glued down the gun bay door right here onto the wing, and we're going to attempt to fit this up into the fuselage when we attach everything together. Now the other wing, I'm going to do it the more traditional way that they mentioned in the instructions because I just want to see which one is better. So in case you build the kit and you kind of do what I'm going to do, you have an idea. So let's go ahead and cue up a time lapse, guys, and we're going to go ahead and install the wings together. We're then going to attach the fuselage to the wings, and then we'll attach that other panel there on that gun bay, and we're just going to see how it all goes. Ideally, this is going to fit right together and won't have any issue, but I can already tell that there's just a little bit of a gap here on both sides. So fingers crossed, this works out. Let's get that glue out and let's get it done. Alright everybody, so we have the wings and the fuselage all nicely glued together. The wing and fuselage joint is actually pretty decent, I have to say. It's a very tight fitting fuselage joint, and that's really, really cool. Wing roots are always hard to go ahead and fix. The Doors themselves for the gun bays, again, a little wonky. On the left side, there's a tiny gap on the fuselage, but the right side, oh man, the right side has a ton of gaps around the panel on the wings. So I'm going to be able to test which is actually better to do, and then you get an idea about what not to do. So let's go ahead and let this dry for a little bit and shift over to the front coping. A couple episodes ago, we actually airbrushed the front coping there for the gun sight and the instrument panel cover. That is all RLM66, and we're ready to go ahead and install the front instrument panel up into that coping. So let's go ahead and just test fit this and see how we're looking. Now the front coping is actually slanted, a bit of an angle, so we have to install the instrument panel at an angle as well. But there's a little locating tab in there, so it's not too bad. It's a nice placement. It's a little bit of extra thin. Let's go ahead and just hold it there for a little bit, make sure this is going to really solidify. And then we're going to come back after this is dry, and then we'll attach it to the actual aircraft. But it's going to go somewhere right here in the front. So it'll cover up the entire front of the cockpit, which is fine. It will obscure a little bit of my detail, but that's okay. We're just going to push forward and just give it a try. So let's go ahead and shift over to the front of the nose here on the 190, and we're going to go ahead and build the front cowling and get all those panels glued together. It shouldn't be too hard to do. We should be able to just fit everything in there. It actually has decent fit already. But we're going to go ahead and use some extra thin Tamiya. We're going to queue up a time lapse, and we're just going to get this entire nose built up. Then we can figure out what to do about the engine, because that's a little bit of some trouble. After we get the cowling glued up, we're then going to install the front coping for the instrument panel, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and look at the engine and see what we need to do for that. All right, everybody, there we go. We've got the wing attached to the fuselage. The gun bay doors are on, glued down. We do have some work to do with those seams, but everything is looking decent with that. We, of course, have our front instrument panel glued in with that top coping all nicely glued and attached. We did build the front cowling, so that's looking all right. Fit was pretty decent with that, but now we have to figure out what to do, because this kit gives you a full engine that you have to build up, and if you want to display it, you got to do a lot of work to go ahead and make sure everything's aligned, and there's a lot of painting involved. I don't really want to do all of that. But of course, looking at the parts and pieces, I realized that there are actually 4 exhaust pipes per side, so 8 total, that we need to go ahead and attach. And none of those exhaust pipes are drilled out. They are all just completely solid pieces, so we'd have to go ahead and come in with our X-Acto knife and drill out by hand every single one of those. And I honestly don't want to do that. I don't really want to build up the engine because you're not going to see it. It's going to be all closed up, and I don't want to have to go ahead and build it up just to go ahead and put these exhaust pipes in. So I have a different idea. What we're going to do is we're going to leave the engine out. We're not going to assemble the engine. Instead, we're just going to create our own exhaust pipes. The way we're going to do that is we're going to take some of these plastic Q-tips, and we're going to use a candle, and we're going to stretch them. That's the exact same technique that I used on my Albatross, and this is going to give us an exhaust pipe completely hollowed out that we can just kind of bend and shape into what we need it to be. So again, slow pressure, a little bit of heat, making sure that this is not completely melted through, but just soft enough to go ahead and start to stretch it. Now, every single one of these is going to come out probably a little bit different, but again, I don't usually do this a lot, so we're going to be real gentle with it. Even pressure on both sides, get ourselves a nice little round opening. So we made quite a few of those, so now let's go ahead and cut out the larger parts, put those aside, and we can use these smaller parts and go ahead and just test fit them and see how these look. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to glue them to the inside of the cowling. We're going to use our pliers and just kind of shapen them a little bit, kind of squish them down so they're not so round, they're a bit more elliptical, and then we should be able to glue them down to the inside of the cowling. Now again, there's going to be 4 for each side, so 8 total. And there's actually 3 on the bottom, kind of grouped, and then 1 that comes down off to the side. So we will have to make those as well. This is a really good option because I honestly do not want to have to go ahead and drill out all these little tiny little exhaust pipes. I don't want to buy aftermarket, so this is probably the easiest, quickest way to get this done. Plus, you're not really going to see them. The cowling is so tightly packed around the engine, you're just not going to see them. So I'm not too worried about it. Using a little bit of super glue here, we've already attached one side. We're working on the other side now, and I got to tell you, it does work. It's not perfect, but again, you're not going to see them. Everything's going to be dark on the inside. You're not really going to have any light shining. You're not going to look with a flashlight in there. And plus, I'll go ahead and paint everything black, and I'll weather them up with a little bit of some rust or something. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Let's go ahead and test fit it here to the front of the cowling. So it actually fits. I like it. You can see just the tips of each one of these exhaust tubes just right there beneath that cowling. Perfect. That's exactly what I was going for. So we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today, guys. I'm really excited to go ahead and push forward. Next time, we're going to go ahead and fill up some gaps. We're going to attach this. We're going to figure out what to do. Since we're not going to install the engine, we have to figure out how to mount the propeller. I've got a couple of ideas about that. So next episode, we'll go ahead and tackle that. And again, I just don't want to make that engine. It's just going to be wasted underneath a closed cowling. I'd much rather save that engine for use in another project because you never know when you might need a BMW engine. So until next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. And we'll see you back here next week on the D-Day Buddy Build, episode number 8. Till then, guys, take care. We'll see you soon.